Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our webcast viewers. My name is Joseph Lowe, Director of the Canadian Club Toronto, and your host today. Viewers, thank you for joining us. Whether you join us online or in person, we are proud of the club's track record of attracting strong audiences to hear high-caliber, influential speakers. Few institutions in the country, or anywhere for that matter, have such staying power. In the era of the 280-character tweet, it's good to know that there is still a healthy appetite for a good meal, great conversation, and captivating speakers. This is especially true in the digital age when so many of us yearn to hear directly from the newsmakers, leaders, and decision-makers of the day. Not only are we proud of the speakers and audiences that we attract, we are grateful for the supportive sponsors that make our events possible. At this time, I would like to acknowledge the generous support of today's sponsors, Bell Media, represented by Randy Lennox, and Deloitte, represented by Ryan Brain. Thank you. I would also like to welcome today the youth and young leaders joining us from Ryerson University's RTA Sports Media program. Welcome and thank you for attending. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Sunday, Monday, Thursday, no matter the day of the week, tens of millions of football fans here at home and across the border tune in religiously to track their favorite NFL team. Overseeing the operation of the National Football League is Maryann Turcke. From marketing to government relations, human resources, and media initiatives, the Chief Operating Officer oversees an impressive range of activity. Maryann was promoted from President of the NFL Network to COO last March, making her the highest-ranking female executive of a major sports league. Before heading to the NFL, Maryann served as president of Bell Media, Canada's leading multimedia company. Known for her leadership and team-building skills, she is credited with building a robust and successful roster of programs, including live programming, digital platforms, news, and sports. Earlier this year, Adweek named Maryann one of the most powerful women in sports. Closer to home, she also has the distinction of being named one of Toronto Life's 50 most influential people. A Sick Kids Foundation director, she is also a member of the Women's Executive Network Hall of Fame. Joining Maryann in conversation today is TSN's Kate Burness. Kate delivers the day's highlights from the world of sports as an anchor for SportsCenter, and also reports on the sidelines of Raptors basketball games on TSN. No stranger to football either, Kate also hosted TSN's Thursday night CFL coverage. Maryann and Kate, the Canadian Club of Toronto podium is yours.
Thank you very much. First off, welcome home.
Thank you.
Welcome back. And you brought your daughter to this event?
Yeah.
So we had to embarrass her right off the top.
Off the top.
Yeah, let's make sure. Hi. Hi, your mom. Quite accomplished. So into those Ryerson kids, I know you're going to be taking my job in T-minus 5 years. So welcome, welcome. Just give me time to pay off my mortgage, that's for sure. But thank you for joining us today. And it is an honor to be here with you. And as a woman in sports, and I think as anyone in sports, what you have accomplished so far, and I know there's probably still a lot to go, it is truly remarkable. Before we get into the hard-hitting football questions, and don't forget to, we're going to take a few of your questions at the end, so make sure you write those down on your cards that are at your table. Have you had any time in the last few years to reflect upon your career at all? We knew you were the president of Bell Media, the president of the NFL Network, and now the COO of the NFL. Did you ever think back to, wow, this has been an amazing ride so far?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the time I reflected most, and I reflected alongside a lot of the people in this room, was when we decided to make the adventure to go to LA. So when I initially left the Bell family, and I was in engineering there, and then media, and then LA, and then New York. So it was a bit of a triangle of sorts. And that was the biggest time that I reflected on, you know, what am I going to do? I was like 51 at the time. Time for an adventure. Mm-hmm. Let's go. There's no other platform like the NFL anywhere in the world. I love sports. So we went for a little adventure, abandoned our children here in Ontario. You know, if your kids don't leave home, just move out on them. okay? It works really well. That was the most reflective time I had, and it was so circuitous, from engineering to media, then NFL, and of course the MLSE folks are here. A big part of why I got this opportunity was because I served on your board for a few years, and it was actually, we hired Tim Lewicki to be your CEO, and it was his brother, Todd, that recruited me to be the president of NFL media, so it was all networked in there, Kate.
Gotcha. So, NFL, we are talking about a juggernaut sports league in the entire world, and it is truly remarkable that it seems to get bigger and better each and every year. The popularity is continuing to grow, and we see the criticism around it sometimes. Oh, it's not going to get bigger, the stadiums are too big, people are stealing it off digital and watching games, but it is still growing. What do you attribute that continual growth to?
Well, I think it goes back to the product on the field, right? And I think that it's the product on the field, and then it's the partners you choose to distribute it with. So in the States, obviously, we have huge network partners, and here, TSN and CTV have done an awesome job, and we can talk about
the only network in Canada.
Awesome results later. But at the end of the day, I think what's driving the popularity and the increased popularity this year is just football is better, and we've got so many amazing stories from our rookie quarterbacks to the seasoned veterans, and when they go head to head, we make a big story about it, and it's everywhere. And some of the guys coming up now are just unbelievable, and they're playing with players who are 20, 22 years their senior, and it's great to see. And I think that a lot of the fans come back in to if they sort of didn't watch much last year, they watch this year because the storyline is better, and it really is about the story sometimes. Yeah,
it is, and we love telling those stories. And with the league and the way it's being consumed, it is changing at such a rapid pace. We're watching games on our smartphones, on our tablets, whatever it may be. And how do you keep up with that? How do you keep up with the changing trends and the way that the league is consumed by your viewers?
So it's interesting, right? Because I think that there's a disproportionate, the level of discussion around consumption on digital platforms and over-the-top platforms outpaces where actual consumption is still occurring. And I'm not up to speed on the latest numbers here in Canada for the split. Now, I know overall, but in the States, only 2 to 3% of our viewership is on our digital platforms. And so when we worked here with HBO and with others, when I was here in Canada, we actually found that delivering content direct to consumers, and we found the same thing here with Crave as well, delivering content direct to consumers doesn't cannibalize what you're doing on the linear network. Rather, it just allows you to take your fair share of those individuals who choose not to have a cable package or a TV package. And we're seeing that in the States too. And really, we fashion ourselves as a B2B, and we're licensees primarily. So are we going to fire up a direct-to-consumer NFL package? Unlikely, because we've got digital partners like Amazon and others who have that B2C relationship that can really drive that consumption alongside our traditional linear partners.
One of the big topics of the NFL this year has certainly been the rule changes. And we spoke about this a little bit as well, and the hitting with the helmet has probably been the driving with your head. And that's been such a hot topic. You've got guys like Clay Matthews who are like, now you can't even hit a quarterback a certain way. How do you think the league has dealt with that? Because I think it is easing off a little bit as the season progresses. Right,
so good football trumps everything. Okay, so this has been a record-setting year for offensive points, offensive touchdowns, passing, like everything is setting records this year. So that mutes a little bit. And whenever you change a rule, like hitting with the helmet, and I'll do a little explanation because it had to be explained to me. So if this is the guy's, like in the tackle position, if this is his body and this is his head, if his head is down and he hits on the helmet, or if his head is straight and he hits with the helmet, it's a call, it's a penalty. If his head is up, hands out tackling is really what we are trying to do with that rule. And in addition, along with that rule that really had some noise at the beginning of the season was hitting a quarterback with your body weight. And so those two things together, look, everybody was learning. Defensive players were learning. All players were learning about the helmet thing. And our referees and our officials were learning as well. So I think everybody, the pendulum has finally sort of done this, and it's stabilized nicely in the middle. And I think what you have, you have guys like Clay Matthews who had a couple of hard full body weight hits and got called, and there was some discussion around that. And I think now guys are sacking and they're making the play. The offensive is losing yards, and the guy, you can see them now twisting and landing beside the quarterback. These quarterbacks, are a big part of what makes the product so great. So it's the right thing to do for the product to make these rule changes as we go.
And we saw the NHL settled their concussion lawsuit, and this is something that the league needs to be thinking about long term as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we like to say, or at least I do, right? We talk a lot about player health and safety, and we've invested a lot of money in brain health, but also, 60 or 70% of our injuries are lower extremity injuries, as you might imagine. So we've done a lot of investing, research in turf science, cleat science, all of that. But it's the health and safety of players is paramount, but it makes the game better as well, right? So we focus on making the game better with things that will also provide avenues for improved safety in the game.
So I have to ask you about Colin Kaepernick, because he has dominated headlines for the last year and a half now, and I think that it is easing off, but it still is out there. And overall, how do you feel the league has dealt with the Colin Kaepernick situation where it's currently at?
So it was really, last year, of course, I was still in LA when it was really firing up. So I saw it from afar, and certainly it was interesting being a Canadian observing this, and the immediate pivot to, kind of a silent protest to something that was really important to 80% of the players, turn into like, these guys aren't patriots anymore. So the way we dealt with it, and for right or for wrong at the time, was, at the beginning, the commissioner really said, we support our players. And then there was so much anger, and of course, as you know, the president weighed in as well. And
the president weighs in on stuff? Tweeting about your league a little bit?
It's interesting, as a sidebar, everyone was like, oh my, here comes the president. And I'm like, wow, a lot of brands would kill for this kind of exposure.
True.
But anyway, it was step by step, and a players' coalition was formed, and those individuals were real leaders around social justice reform in the States, and a lot of teams have been a big part in getting legislation through in Massachusetts, in Ohio, around either re-entry, education, youth incarceration, all these kinds of things. So it really pivoted quickly to, let's focus on what the issue is and get that on the go. And we started to make progress in that. So everybody settled down a little bit. And when we came into this year, the football was really good. And the conversation pivoted. But look, it is still a big part of what we think about. Like after our Salute to Service Week, we go into My Cause, My Cleats, which is a really interesting time of the year where about 800 or 900 players have signed up, and they get custom cleats, and they have an opening ceremony, and it's their cause. It's very personal. And then after that, we move into Inspire Change, which is an entire program around social justice and what we're doing in the communities, especially underserved communities in the States.
So asking for a friend, let's talk about current players like Le'Veon Bell, who's still holding out. I mean, is he coming back if someone put him on his fantasy team and he hasn't returned to play yet? Come on, you've got this insider info for me.
Did you seriously put
well,
him on his fantasy team?
One of my producers here, she's a diehard Steelers fan, and you'd think he'd sit out like 2 weeks and then he'd be back, right?
Do they really need him?
Yes, we do, Sophie. He's on people's fantasies teams. One of my girlfriends. Yeah, it is
Deadline.
4 o'clock today, you're right. Can you text someone?
No.
Fine.
It's totally
No,
not
but what does it mean to a league? I mean, he has, to have someone in their prime sitting out because he feels like he should be paid. Do you find that positive or negative, for the league overall?
So for the league overall, it really is at the team level, right? And I think that it's up at the team level to manage that locker room. And I think that's where it really hits, right? In terms of the quality of the product. Are they managing the locker room so they can put their best product on the field every Sunday? From a league perspective, look, there are lots of contract disputes and everything like that. And we have thousands of players. So we just manage as we go. But really, it's about the Pittsburgh fans, because when you look at it from a fan perspective, it's the Pittsburgh fans that really matter. And it's him, too, and his personal brand. And, right now, Pittsburgh is doing pretty well, right? So I think that it's up to him to figure out what he wants and move from there.
All right, fine. I'll check. Do you play fantasy?
I do not play
Oh,
fantasy.
that would be so cool if you did.
Not allowed.
So I do like, so we had really?
No.
Oh, wow. Oh, we're so competitive in
Not
this
allowed to
room.
bet either.
What?
Nope. No sports betting.
I mean, someone could bet for you. So I like when we were speaking before too. We spoke on the phone before we got here, and I asked you. And we get asked this question a lot. You know, female in sports, and you know, you're an amazing executive at sports. I want to be known as a great sportscaster. But when you do look at the viewership and the fans of the NFL, it is remarkable that it's got to be nearly a 50-50 split. There are as many men. You go to a football game in the NFL, there is as many women in that stands as men. Does that surprise you whatsoever? And is there marketing at all geared towards women versus men, or is it just open season for both?
So in the States, there's like 180 million fans, right? So it pretty much measures or mirrors the US Census, I should say. So it's not really a surprise. And yes, a lot of our biggest partners, and it's the same here, because I can remember, some of them do focus on that woman demographic, right? Because it really is important for the commitment of that Wednesday or Sunday afternoon, watching football and that kind of thing. So yes and yes. The thing that where it differs is in the avid fans. In our avid fans, it skews much more male. And what we know is that the relationship between being an avid fan and having played the game is really, really close. So one of the things that we're doing, we work with USA Football closely on our youth football strategy, and that is really around just promoting participation in the game. And now flag, like if you in the States, the number of kids playing football is held constant, and flag is really, really growing. And I think that that's important because the single biggest upside there is girls are going to play flag. I really think that flag football could be an Olympic sport one day.
Cool.
I think it'll bring the rest of the world in. We know that we develop global fans when, you know, kids in other parts of the world are playing the sport. And we also know that even though it's not tackle football, the complexity of an 11-11 offense or defense, I mean, these are complicated plays, and it takes a while to figure it out. And when you can have that level of understanding, that you really can more appreciate the game and you're more likely to be an avid fan. So that's really that's where I think the upside for young girls is.
So speaking of growth and things that may happen in the future, before we're going to start our audience questions, where does the NFL go from here? I mean, every year we feel like it hits the pinnacle, and normally there's only one way when you're at the top is down, but it just continues to grow. So what's next for the league in your opinion?
You know, I started with it, right? We have to keep a good product on the field. And part of that, we talked about some of the rule changes and things, but it's also the competitive nature of it. And at 14 of the last 15 seasons, we've had a team that's gone from last in their division to winning their division. Like last night had great ratings. The local ratings
so the
are
Raiders
out,
have a chance.
15%. Everybody, we sell
You're
hope.
like, no,
Kate,
not the
sell
Raiders.
hope.
Good one.
But anyway, like last night, right? The Giants and the 49ers, and it was a great matchup, and ratings killed it because matchups matter and exciting football matters. And the level, like the standard deviation between the ability of each of these players and coaches and everything is so narrow that even when you're at the bottom of your division, you're still a damn good football team and you can still have a good matchup. So I think that, I'm not kidding. I mean, if there's hope, and this is when it really starts to, you know, people start to hope and pray.
There you go, Raiders fans. It's going to be okay. All right, let's get to these audience questions. I hope they're fantasy related. From the Ryerson University RTA Sports Media Table, holla.
Stand up and say hi.
Say hi, everyone. Who's taking my job? I know that girl is. She's been up to me like 4 times. She's like, enjoy your last 2 weeks on SportsCenter, Kate. No, I'm not kidding. Okay, can you explain the bigger picture behind the NFL Fortnite? This is such a university question. NFL Fortnite relationship. What is the future of esports?
So the Fortnite.
Do you play Fortnite?
No, I do not.
Ah.
But my daughter and her friends do, or she might not, but her friends do.
She's like, I don't, Mom. Yes, I do? No, you don't. No.
So listen, Fortnite went from 0 to 130 million users in what seemed like overnight. I'm sure it wasn't overnight. And the lion's share of those users are really young. And they are the folks that it's harder and harder to reach in broadcast television. It is a fantastical kind of game where you can wear wings and you can do this and you can do that. So what we decided to do through our consumer products division was enter into a relationship with Fortnite where you can buy NFL skins and put your number on it. And the best part about it for me, and this doesn't surprise a lot of people here, I'm sure, but I was like, it can't just be, like you can be an avatar, right? And there are lots of different avatars, men and women avatars, but in NFL, we have women and men avatars. So you can dress up as a woman in a 49ers jersey or whatever, which is kind of exciting. And a lot of men play Fortnite as a woman avatar, which is interesting, but really it was a reach game.
You know a lot about Fortnite.
I do know a lot about Fortnite.
I am I mean, you're impressive, but that just took you to the next level.
No, it's great. So it's an in-app purchase, so you got to go in, and the conversation starts. It's like, football's here at Fortnite, and everyone goes into their cupboard, and they can buy their little kit, and it just creates a lot of discussion and engagement for us and for Fortnite. So that's why we did it. And that really, the future of esports, it's not really esports, but it's related a little bit to our relationship with Madden, and we have a big relationship with Madden, and that's an important part of what we do as well, to engage people in any form of the game.
Well done, RTA students. Well done.
Very good.
Very good, very good. I'm impressed. I seriously am. What does NFL do specifically in Canada to help develop the fan base?
Stu, did you want to take that one?
Stu, you're right here. Oh, there we go.
And Dave's here. Look, I think that, and I just had a meeting with the NFL Canada team last week, and they do a ton, but I will say, and it's not a shameless plug, maybe it's a bit of shameless plug, but having the Bell Media family, the combination of TSN and CTV, and the reach of CTV, and the way the live production crews that, where we produce, and the integration of all content into pop culture, like The Social, like Marilyn Dennis is a massive Pittsburgh Steelers fan. It really, I knew that if we had one place to go, we could propagate the message, and we could really make 1 and 1 equal 2.5 with the Bell Media team. So that's a big part of it. And developing the fan base here is really about integrating it in with other areas where you're going to sort of acquire fans from different places around different aspects of the game. And I think we're over 12 million fans across the country strong now, and that's up 7 or 8%, I think, year over year, right, Dave? So it's good.
And 11.5 million of them suffering as Buffalo Bill fans, so.
Not last
Oh,
weekend,
hey,
my friend.
I know.
Not last
Not that I
weekend.
bet.
I was there.
Not really?
Yes,
Not that I
course.
bet, but my God, that team has just screwed me pretty hard this year. Sorry my language, but it's true.
See, their quarterback
could you
went,
give me a heads up on
went
this?
down early.
I know.
Their new draft pick.
Oh, boy. What has been your favorite moment or proudest moment in your new role?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one. No name. Can't even give you credit for that.
Proudest moment. I don't, there hasn't really been one moment. It really is what you realize slowly is the utter scale of, we know that word well from our past, but the utter scale of the NFL. And just, when you go to talk to someone, like when we're doing a deal with Amazon or Facebook, it's like, okay, like, well, let's just call Jeff Bezos then. It's like, what? Like in Canada, you gotta do all this, right? But it's such an integral part, an important part of the economy and the marketplace down there. And that made me proud that I was part of something like that. And there's a lot that I haven't figured out what it's going to be, and I need my sea legs to get under me a little bit more, but I do think that there's a lot I can do from this position to really impact things that matter to me because of the platform. So that makes me proud too.
Do you ever have to fight to be heard despite your title? Do you have any advice for young women in the room as they build their careers in sport?
I think, everybody has to fight to be heard at some point, and I'll tell you what, they're like 35% of the SVPs at the NFL are women. So it's not necessarily a woman. For me, it's, I never worked at a club. I worked in media, so I understand that. And being a Canadian, usually the way I get heard is throwing some hockey analogy up there, like, stop ragging the puck. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Get puck
Everybody
stick, what?
sits up, and then I can start talking. But it's, you just got to fight all the time to be heard and make sure that what you say matters.
All right, I like this one. From Kurt at table 8. Where are you at, Kurt? Hey, buddy. We met beforehand. Considering the success of the LA Rams relocation from St. Louis, and the last new expansion team was the Houston Texans back in 2002. Oh, this is really detailed, man. Are there any chances of the addition of another expansion team in the future? Cough, cough, Toronto. Very subtle.
I would say I have not heard a lot of talk around that. We're still trying to digest the move of the Rams and the Chargers and also Oakland, right, to Vegas. So that's a lot of work, a lot of new stadiums being built. These stadiums are becoming massive. Like Stan Kroenke, who owns the Rams, is putting the better part of, $3 or $4 million in the ground in LA. Like it's going to be a whole community. So we are worried about digesting that, and then our sort of strategy around getting international fans would be what you see happening in the UK with playing some games over there. We are in discussions here about what we can do with the Bills or other kind of near border teams, to sort of propagate the fan base here a little bit. But sorry.
So no,
It's well
you're not
balanced.
getting a team.
It's well balanced at 32 teams.
No, it is well balanced. Just a side question though, is there any concerns too? We talked about the size of these stadiums and just the way the game's being consumed. Is there a concern with these stadiums have just gotten like so big? Like I saw the Vegas one recently and like, my goodness, when you can consume it on all these different platforms.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we work really hard to manage the in-stadium experience, and we work with our clubs to do that, and it's part of a group, like our club business development group that reports to me. We spend a lot of time, what's the entertainment going on in the stadium, and the single biggest problem with the in-stadium experience is actually the getting into the stadium experience and the getting out of the stadium experience. Yeah. So working with clubs, a lot of guys have done some interesting things. The Crafts in Foxborough have done things where, you can get a discount at some pub on the property if you wait an hour before you go out, you park in a special place. In Miami, they've done some really interesting things around high-end club suites in the lower bowl where you park further away and there's a shuttle bus that takes you in. So those are the kind of things that are going into the stadium experience. But right now, I mean, the manifests range from kind of 50 to almost 70 in some cases. So I think teams play with that all the time in terms of, and even the New England Patriots, and I'm pointing at my girlfriend here who's a huge fan, they have done some work where they actually have taken seats out and re-engineered kind of gathering areas and bar areas, and they make more money per customer.
Really?
Yeah, and more overall too. So there's lots of things going on. It's not necessarily because they're so big or that attendance is on a decline or anything. It's really just how do you improve that experience for families coming.
And in Buffalo, if you show up early, you can light yourself on fire and jump into a table.
Yes.
Yes, it's fun times at Orchard Park. What do you think about the NHL announcement and MGM partnerships on sports betting?
So, I mean, sports betting just became legal in the States. The PASPA bill was struck down. So we are working hard, and I'll get to the NHL in a minute, but from the NFL perspective, we're working really hard with Senator Hatch out of Utah to put a federal legislation in place. And what that federal legislation largely does is protect the IP of the sports leagues, it protects consumers, and it protects the integrity of the sport, and it protects states' rights. So if Utah never wants sports gambling to be legal in their states, they don't have to have it. So we're working hard on that. In the meantime, the NFL in particular has been very, very, we don't want anything to do with betting in the past 100 years. It's all about the integrity of our game. So we're really being careful around, we spent millions of dollars compliance training, because of course it's betting is legal in New Jersey now, so the Giants and the Jets, people are betting on those games, and it's really interesting to see what's going on there with companies like FanDuel and DraftKings and things like that. So we have yet to announce a formal relationship, and we would separate into a casino relationship versus a sportsbook relationship. We do not have sponsor relationships with those kinds of organizations yet, but the NBA and the NHL both do. In the States, though, when the NFL does something, it's so different, right? Mm-hmm. The NHL and the NBA can do things and kind of try, and we talk a lot to the other commissioners and the other leagues when we think about it. In fact, when we did the legislation, we worked a lot with the NBA and the NHL and the MLB. So, we just have to be, we have to be careful about the product on the field and the integrity of the product. And if you think about the power of sports in the States, if the integrity of sports, either at the NCAA level or the professional level, it's such a big part of the GDP. I think everybody, politicians included, are all, let's be wise about how we go down this road.
Yeah. Absolutely. In Netflix and PVR world that we currently live in, how does the NFL take advantage of its live audience?
Is that Victoria Spanton?
Yeah, it is Victoria. Where are you, Victoria?
Over there.
Oh, hi, friend.
I saw Victoria. I was
Hi,
like,
Victoria.
I know.
Long time. She used to be in the newsroom with us, too.
Oh.
Yeah. She's like, yeah,
Okay, so what was the
stop
question
talking
again?
about me. She's like, please stop. In the Netflix PVR world we live in, how does the NFL take advantage of live audience regarding advertising?
So we have a relationship with Amazon in the States. So two things. In the States, we have a relationship with Amazon, and they do Thursday Night Football. In addition, and that's live, obviously. In addition, we have TV everywhere, just like you do here, and we take advantage of that in terms of people who want to stream and have an out-of-home experience. In addition to that, we have a product called Game Pass, which here in Canada has, it's almost like Sunday Ticket Online, right? It has all of the live games. In the States, it doesn't have the live games, but there's Sunday Ticket on broadcast television. So there's all sorts of ways to see the content, but on demand really doesn't exist in live sports, except for in Game Pass, where we have all of the old games and you can kind of go back. I don't know what it is, like 4 hours after game start time or something, you can log in and see the game. Maybe it's that time has shrunk, but there's lots of different ways that we're trying to attack that. But look, it's season to date, out of the top 20 shows in the States, we're 19 of the top 20, and number 17 is the Game 5 of the World Series. So like it is
incredible.
Live sports. So right now, you know, we have to really focus on how do we keep our broadcast partners strong, and how do we not pivot so hard to the shiny penny and really invest in those relationships that get to most of our fans. I mean, the reach is incredible, and the broadband footprint in the States doesn't cover as much as the high-speed broadband footprint does here. So streaming products in the States are at a disadvantage compared to here.
I thought you were going to say This Is Us. It's the other one.
Yeah.
19 out of 20.
No, I know.
That's a
It's good,
tearjerker.
though.
I know, I can't watch it. What would happen? It's just too emotional.
It's your show.
It's my show?
It's CTV's show.
I mean, I watch it all the time, Randy. She's got any jobs available for the NFL? Because I'm clearly out of one here.
These guys are.
I know, they're already taking my job. I know how this works today. Whoa, I'm sorry, Randy. What would happen if the NFL lost its tax-exempt status?
It has.
There you go. Great.
So that's an American, that's a very detailed question.
That is
What
a
the
very
advantage?
detailed question.
So like, yeah, we had a not-for-profit status because all of the money comes in from the national and regional broadcast balls and comes in and gets divided 1/32 equally. So, you know, that had happened for years. And I wasn't there when it all happened, but at the end of the day, then the tax-exempt status is gone. We dealt with that on our.
Finally, do you have the ability to change Kate's
What?
NFL
That's
fantasy team? What? You have that kind of power.
Do you play NFL fantasy or?
I do, but not on NFL.com. I play it on a different site, and I don't go under Kate Burness.
Of course.
I'm not telling you the name I go under, but I'm sure you can find it. We are out of time. But thank you so much for coming back,
fun.
coming
Thank
back
you,
to
Kate.
Toronto. Thank you.
Hey, fairness people.
I'll be here all day.
Okay.
Enjoy the NFL. We can't wait. You're going to be commissioner. I mean, come on now. One day. But thank you very much for
Thanks, Kate.
for being here and having us and speaking to all of us today. So thank you.
Thanks,
Maryann
thanks
Turcke,
everyone
everyone.
for coming.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Pierce. I'm a director at the Canadian Club Toronto. And it says a former colleague of Maryann, but really, she was my boss. So I have to stand up extra straight. Maryann, on behalf of the club, thank you for sharing your passion for the NFL today. Your leadership of NFL ops is inspiring, but it's not surprising. Interest in football, as we know, happily, is stronger than ever, and fans are more engaged than ever, as we've heard today. So please accept our best wishes for your continued success. And Kate, thank you for such an engaging conversation. It was terrific. I'm sorry that you got no traction whatsoever on the fantasy part. Before we conclude, just a couple of pieces of business in terms of upcoming events. On Thursday, November 15th, we host a panel of experts who will address Canada's innovation strategies. And the following day, Friday, November 23rd, Canada's Minister of Finance, the Honourable Bill Morneau, will be at the podium. I hope you can attend. Thank you to MediaEvents.ca, Canada's online event space, and to VVC for live streaming today's event. And once again, and most importantly, thank you to Bell Media and to Deloitte for sponsoring today's event. We look forward to seeing you all soon.